I call to order delegate. It's an honor to welcome you to this roundtable discussion during the 2026 June management segment of the Economic and Social Council discussion under the theme Enhancing the Effectiveness and the Responsiveness of ECOSOC subsidiaries architecture for the final mile climate impacts and the rapid pace of technological transformation. This is why it is so important to deliver on the promises until their deadline, until only 35% of the SDGs targets are on track. Delivering on the SDGs in this last mile demands collective resolve. It also system. And it begins here with the ECOSOC system, which bring a remarkable wealth of expertise, of evidence, of data and policy the ECOSOC architecture can operate more effectively and in more integrated manner to deliver its full potential. ECOSOC forthcoming 2027 review of its subsidiary body are important opportunity to this end. As we to deliver. Dear colleague, today's discussion invites us to consider how the Council can better leverage the collective strength of its subsidiary machinery. Our of multilateralism to deliver meaningful result for people and for the planet. I thank you. keynote remarks. Madam Deputy Secretary General, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Excellency, Vice President of ECOSOC, our Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the view our progress, we hope that we will find the acceleration for the action that is needed, but also begin the journey to look beyond 2030. Today, we are faced with global challenges that amount ECOSOC occupies a unique place within the multilateral system. It brings together economic, social, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development. It serves as an inclusive platform for policy dialogue and coordination among governments, the UN system, and key stakeholders. It also plays a and they generate analysis, evidence, expertise, and recommendations across the full spectrum of sustainable development issues. They also help us to identify emerging challenges, to shape our policy responses, and to support member states in implementing internationally agreed commitments. Today's discussion offers a powerful illustration of how the different parts of the ECOSOC machinery are working to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs and mobilize adequate financing for sustainable development. To make the goals a reality by their 2030 deadline, we need data to understand where progress has been made and where gaps continue to persist. One of the main achievements of the past decade is the progress on data. We must measure better with data available for over 80% of the targets policies can reach. We also need strong public institutions capable of turning policies into concrete results through better and faster access to public services for everyone, stronger systems that we need responses that address the complex health challenges that pose not only a risk to people's health, but have social and security dimensions that need solutions. And we need regional cooperation to adapt global ambitions to diverse circumstances and sustainable development and providing evidence-based policy and technical support. Through their different mandates, areas of expertise, and institutional perspectives, the Council's subsidiary bodies, including those that are represented here today, can help us understand challenges more fully and connect knowledge across disciplines, identifying solutions and drive policies that are more integrated, that are more inclusive and effective in supporting critical intergovernmental decision-making. The question before us is how to ensure that this work translates much more effectively how do we ensure that the Council's subsidiary architecture functions as a force multiplier for SDG delivery in the final stretch towards 2030. This is challenges us to ensure that the United Nations remains fit for purpose and focuses on impact. At its core, The UN is about ensuring The UN 80 is about ensuring that our institutions deliver better and the HLPF. Looking ahead, ECOSOC itself will undertake a review of its subsidiary machinery during its 2027 session. These processes should not be viewed that they have to take on the ground in response to national priorities. The upcoming review of the Council's subsidiary bodies is more than a procedural exercise. It's a moment to ask whether our current architecture is helping us to respond to today's challenges with sufficient urgency, coherence, and impact. A chance to identify the synergies, to reduce duplication, strengthen our collaborations, and to support member states in delivering on the development frameworks. Excellencies, the chairs and members that are gathered here today represent an extraordinary wealth of expertise and lived experience. From data and geospatial information to governance, gender equality, our regional cooperation and beyond, this is all central to the achievement of sustainable prosperity for people and our environment. I hope this discussion will generate timely and practical ideas that help to position ECOSOC's subsidiary architecture to accelerate development action. Ideas that strengthen the Council's role as a platform for accountability and follow-up, and ideas that help us to ensure that our institutions can respond to the complex challenges of our time and in the future. I thank you.
I thank the Deputy Secretary General for this introductory remark. I understand that the Deputy Secretary General has to leave for another engagement. I briefly paused the meeting to allow her to depart the podium. Thank you. With your permission, we will now proceed with the roundtable discussion. I'm pleased to welcome the panelists. His Excellency Wellington Ben Cosme, Permanent Representative of the Dominican Republic to the UN, and Chair of the Commission on the Status of Women, His Excellency Andranik Hovhannisyan, Permanent Representative of Armenia to the United Nations in Vienna, and also Chair of the Commission on Narcotic Drugs at its 69th session. Ms. Graciela Marquez Colin, President of the National Institute of Statistics and Geography of Mexico, and Chair of the Statistical Commission Census Bureau and co-chair of the Committee of Experts on Geospatial Information Management. Mr. Rolf Alter, at its 25th session, who is connected via video conference. And last, Mr. Claver Gatete, Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa and coordinator of the Regional Commissions for 2026, from whom we will hear a video message. It's a very impressive gathering. I will give the floor to each of the panelists in turn, and I kindly remind speakers to keep the intervention to 3 minutes each. (2026/2) on the revitalization of the Commission on the Status of Women, strengthening implementation across the ECOSOC subsidiary architecture, across UN system entities and other actors to support SDG implementation while advancing gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, dear Ambassador Benjamin, distinguished delegates. As he was mentioned by the Ambassador, the adoption of ECOSOC Resolution 2020 subsidiary architecture, thereby advancing gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. Reflecting on this experience, several key lessons emerged that could be relevant to other subsidiary bodies and the UN system entities seeking to enhance their effectiveness and responsiveness. First, clear accountability mechanisms help bridge the gap between agreed conclusions and tangible follow-up. The introduction of state-led dialogues where member states share progress, challenges, lessons learned, and best practices offers a useful model for regular monitoring and peer learning. While the modalities are still being developed, this approach holds promise for more meaningful engagement, as in the case of the Beijing commitment. Second, the decision to hold high-level meetings on critical cross-cutting issues while also addressing emerging areas of concern creates a structure that is both developments. Third, the provision for rotation location for 5 yearly review sessions of the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action can help bridge global commitments with local realities. This has the potential to broaden participation and ensure more context-specific implementation. Fourth, convening an interactive multi-stakeholder hearing prior to CSW session provides a platform for governments, civil society, academia, and the private sector to contribute evidence, experience, and practical solutions. I cannot stress how important this approach of integrating key priorities across all areas of work, rather than treating them in isolation. This approach can too help improve policy coherence, implementation, and overall impact across the ECOSOC system. I thank you, Mr. President, Vice President, for the opportunity.
I thank Ambassador Benkos. Now to Ambassador Hovhannisyan, and drawing on the experience of the Commission of Narcotic Drugs. To agreed outcomes and translating intergovernmental commitment into action on the ground at the national level. And what lesson could this offer to other ECOSOC subsidiary bodies in support of the implementation of the 2030 agenda? You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues. The Commission on Narcotic Drugs, CND, as the United Nations principal policymaking body on drug control with treaty-based functions, continues to see strong engagement and increasing demand on its work. In this context, enhancing effectiveness and responsiveness is essential. Allow me to highlight 3 priority areas alongside concrete recommendations for ECOSOC and its subsidiary bodies. First, actionable outcomes and follow-up. The CND's intersessional thematic discussions, grounded in UNODC data and expertise, have proven to be a valuable platform for sharing national experiences, lessons learned, and good practices governments, international organizations, civil society, and the scientific community. The Pledge for Action spotlights during these thematic discussions provide member states an opportunity to update the Commission on progress made in the this by ensuring these are systematically reflected in Council policy documents. In addition, the Council and its subsidiary bodies could promote structured follow-up mechanisms, such as the strengthened pledge monitoring, to translate commitments into measurable progress. Second, coherence across the system. The CND benefits from collaborating with other functional commissions, including not only the Vienna-based Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice, but also the Statistical Commission, the Commission on the Status of Women, and the Commission on Science and Technology for Development. A useful practice is the roundtable which one of my predecessors, the CND chair of a 67th session, held at the margins of a 2024 ECOSOC coordination segment, seeking the views of our functional commissions ahead of the CND's 2024 ministerial segment. Further strengthening system-wide coherence remains critical to addressing the complex, cross-cutting nature of drug-related challenges. The Council may wish to foster strong based outside New York to regularly present their outcomes at ECOSOC would ensure that their expertise is more fully integrated into Council deliberations and decision-making. Third, technological innovation and working methods. Recent experience within the CND has demonstrated that the hybrid meeting format and use of modern technology significantly enhance inclusivity, allowing capital-based experts to participate effectively and cost-efficiently. However, such hybrid arrangements for formal proceedings were unfortunately considered to be only time-bound contingency arrangements for COVID times and are no longer in place. ECOSOC could take the lead in modernizing intergovernmental working methods by enabling hybrid formats and the use of modern technology in formal proceedings. This might require appropriate procedural adjustments, but would ultimately strengthen participation, inclusiveness, and responsiveness across the system. Mr. Vice President, the CND remains committed to supporting ECOSOC's work and to strengthening cooperation across the UN system. We stand ready to contribute to more effective, coherent, and future-oriented architecture. I thank you.
I thank Ambassador Hovhannisyan. Turning to Ms. Collin and drawing on the experience excuse me, of the Statistical Commission in supporting evidence-based decision-making across a wide range of intergovernmental processes and policy areas. What lesson can be learned from its collaboration with other ECOSOC subsidiary bodies and stakeholders? Excuse me. And how can such collaboration help strengthen coherence and informed decision-making and drive integrated implementation of the SDGs across all the ECOSOC subsidiary architecture? You have the floor, Madam.
Muchas gracias. La pregunta que se me hace es...
Thank you very much. The question that was asked is quite relevant indeed, because it is exactly this collaborative work that is at the heart of what the Statistics Commission has been doing for decades. Indeed, this is linked to all of the entities and bodies of ECOSOC, demonstrating that there's a need to respond effectively to implementation problems of the SDGs today. It is crucial to strengthen these mechanisms to allow for an acceleration of the implementation of the SDGs collectively. Beyond identifying what is missing as we head toward 2030, we must also learn from the past and focus on collaboration. Collaboration within ECOSOC, as well as with all of the rest of the UN system. Our work within the Statistics Commission is aimed at finding consensus on methodology and on concrete measures for sustainable development. This will remain a fundamental guide. Our work is technical in nature, and it is based on a cornerstone that is consensus to ensure that the measures adopted lead to policies that can be implemented for development. And within this framework, we have created information, data, through traditional means, through surveys and studies, but we also have been innovative, especially by using geospatial information and more recently by using AI. All of these issues link us to one another. I'm speaking of all of the entities and bodies of ECOSOC. As we head toward 2030, we must also think about new horizons, which today are already clearly defined, but will require a great deal more work over the next few years, with initiatives concerning measures that go beyond GDP. The high-level expert group working on this issue is already an excellent starting point. Today, the priority is to move forward through various intermediate stages to establish this collaboration that involves all of ECOSOC. This will allow us to transcend mere aggregated results worldwide. We need to have an analysis of data that allows us to have tangible action at the level of each member state. We must take a look at useful cases beyond merely technical exercises. We must think about and think in terms of functioning for the entire system to guarantee smooth coordination throughout ECOSOC and all of its bodies in order to guarantee coherence system-wide. It is vital to pursue our work on the SDGs until 2030. We must ensure that the initiatives aimed at measures beyond GDP are organized in a coordinated manner within the Statistics Commission. Our technical work will continue. Providing robust technical elements allowing policy implementation. Thank you.
I thank Ms. Collin. I now turn to Ms. Bishop. How has the Committee of Experts on Geospatial Information Management sought to bridge institutional silos and strengthen collaboration across ECOSOC subsidiary bodies to support more coherent, more integrated implementation of the 2030 agenda? You have the floor, Madam.
Your Excellency, Mr. Amar Benjama, Vice President of the Economic and Social Council. Thank you for providing me an opportunity to address this council in my quality as co-chair and for sharing perspectives on behalf of the Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management. Whether for land administration, coastal management, community planning, public services delivery, or disaster prevention, geospatial information enables governments to make informed decisions, monitor outcomes, and better serve their populations. Geospatial information is a nation's digital currency and a critical component of public digital infrastructure, providing a nation's blueprint of what happens where. As Deputy Secretary General Mohammed stated this morning, it is critical to connect knowledge across disciplines. Geospatial information serves as the foundation to make this happen. It provides the means to integrate, to understand, and to act across topics. At the national level, geospatial information enables a whole of government approach by integrating across government services and action that contribute to economic growth, national security, social development, environmental sustainability, and national prosperity. Through the framework developed by our Committee of Experts, the United Nations Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, we support countries in strengthening national geospatial capacities and coordination across institutions. This framework helps bridge traditional institutional silos and promotes a coherent, integrated approach to public sector delivery and policymaking. Geospatial information acts as a powerful integrator that advances data-driven decision-making. Geospatial information underpins everything. It is literally everywhere and can help you take effective decisions and monitor progress of these decisions, advancing progress for our world. Geospatial information is indispensable as it uniquely provides the ability to link people, activities, and resources to territories, allowing us to understanding disease transmission. Geospatial information transforms global ambitions into actionable insights and measures outcomes, delivering integrated support across our global priorities. Finally, our committee is already working across We welcome collaboration across ECOSOC subsidiary bodies, and we are convinced that geospatial information can further make valuable contributions to their respective objectives. Our data, methodologies, and analytical technologies, creating opportunities to contribute to broader discussions such as science and technology for development. Despite an ongoing absence of both regular staffing and funding for our committee, our community can help progress for people, places, and planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. I now turn to Mr. Alt. Of the Committee of Experts on Public Administration in translating its analytic work and recommendation into timely, coordinated, (2030). You have the floor, Mr. Alta.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for inviting me to join this very interesting ideas about contributions of SIPA. First of all, I'd like to really highlight, and we've heard this morning clearly, public administrations all over the world are under pressure. They and the ensuing crises. And they operate today in a very turbulent global context. Against this background, I'd like to share a few experiences of the SEPA over the last years until, of course, our last session in New York in April. First, we developed a set of 11 principles for effective governance on the implementation of the SDGs. This type of work, organized standard for public administration. Just to note that in close cooperation with our friends from the African peer review mechanism, we demonstrated, and I think it has been the APRM in the AU's Agenda 2036, and of course, the 2030 Agenda of the UN. Second, I'd like to make sure that transformation of public administration. And by the way, and I emerging pressures and where the weak SDG that we would like to suggest that the cooperation with the United Nations Development System and relevant UN entities is key to transmitting this work as an advisory council, transmitting this work into the activities of the UN agencies in countries, and therefore assist countries have to manage, means that public administration remains under stress. My second point is simply to say, in terms of contributions, of course, we would be delighted, as SEPA could very much contribute to a mapping of SDG interactions of all bodies with a reporting relationship to ECOSOC, and then make also perhaps proposals for institutional measures. And certainly the assessment of the effectiveness of ECOSOC subsidiary architecture through the policy coherence indicator of SDG 17 would be another contribution we would like to offer to make. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for giving me the floor.
Of the regional commissions for 2026. Mr. Claver Gatete.
Excellencies, distinguished is not moving at the speed or scale required. Africa's experience illustrates both the gravity of the challenge and the scale of the opportunity. Despite progress in recent decades, about 600 million Africans youth unemployment and underemployment are among the continent's biggest development risks. Excellencies, the opportunity is equally compelling. Africa is one of the fastest growing regions globally, with 12 out of 20 fastest growing countries being African. The continent holds about 30% of the world's critical minerals for the energy transition and vast renewable fast, effective implementation must become our central focus. The era of pilot projects without scale and recommendations without execution must give way to investments that generate industries, jobs, and resilience. With intra-African trade still must adopt more integrated and coherent approaches to development. Development challenges across climate, energy, water, food systems, and finance are interconnected, and our institutional architecture must reflect this reality. Third, we must fully harness the power of regional cooperation. Here, regional commissions are uniquely positioned to connect global priorities I thank you very much for your kind attention.
for their insightful remark. I now open the floor to delegations are concise as possible, so that all requests from the floor can be accommodated. I'll give the floor to the representative of Mozambique, then Nepal, Poland, Indonesia, Canada. Mozambique, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the insights of the panelists. Chair, with less than 5 years remaining to 2030, we are indeed in the final mile of SDGs implementation. Yet, last mile delivery remains a persistent challenge. Member states have invested immense political capital in the processes that led to the SDGs and other major global outcomes. Our task now is to deliver on them, not to relitigate them every time implementations become difficult or political winds shift. Ideally, frameworks should in turn guide CPD's regional support, financing, etc. In practice, however, this transformation belt does not yet function as it should. What can be done in light of the financing for development follow-up process system, and particularly from Africa, must also organize ourselves better for impact. In this regard, we look forward to the A14 mechanism in action and to your forthcoming presidency as an opportunity to strengthen coordination, build common positions, and ensure that Africa's priorities are translated more effectively into policy guidance.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Excellencies. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the group of least developed countries. The group welcomes this timely discussion as we enter the final years of implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the Doha Program of Action. Mr. Vice President, for the LDCs, the key question is not whether we reform institutions. Efficiency gains translate into greater development impact on the ground. On the first question regarding how ECOSOC subsidiary bodies can better translate analysis into action, the LDC group believes that recommendations must be accompanied by cleared implementation pathways. Call for a stronger transmission of recommendations from ECOSOC subsidiary bodies into country-level implementation through the resident coordinated system and UN Sustainable Development Cooperation frameworks aligned with national development priorities and context. Systematic tracking of implementation of key recommendations affecting LDCs, including those related to financing, climate resilience, productive capacity development, and sustainable graduation support. Greater use of evidence from countries in special situations to inform must be strengthened, diversity of the mandates be respected, and system-wide coordination be enhanced. However, efficiency should not come at the expense of political attention to the unique needs of the LDCs. We thus stress better alignment of the work of ECOSOC subsidiary bodies with the 6 priority areas of Doha Program of Action, enhance coordination among functional commissions, expert bodies, and regional commissions on issues that cut across development, finance, is furthest behind. On the third question regarding integrated approaches, LDCs strongly support a more holistic approach across ECOSOC architecture. From LDC's perspective, development challenges do not occur in silos. Climate vulnerability affects food security and inclusive growth. Debt pressures constrain social investment. Weak productive capacities limit resilience and economic diversification. ECOSOC subsidiary bodies should therefore act as a force multiplier by promoting in special situation. More systematic engagement between ECOSOC bodies and the financing for development, climate, and development cooperation processes. Stronger support for nationally owned integrated strategies that advance both SDG implementation and DPOA priorities. In closing, Mr. Vice President, as you approach the 2027 DPOA review, the group believes that success should be measured by whether ECOSOC subsidiary architecture becomes more responsive, and efficient United Nations system. For LDCs, this must mean delivering tangible results, increase ODA and resilience, technology transfer, accelerated SDG progress, strengthened productive capacities, sustainable graduation pathways, and fulfillment of international commitments under Doha.
Je voudrais demander votre indulgence.
I would like to request your the permanent representative of Armenia has very kindly agreed to take my place for those few moments. And so I want to hand over to my colleague for the moderation of this roundtable. I thank you in advance for your indulgence.
To the distinguished representative of Poland, to be followed by Indonesia and Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I feel especially privileged to deliver my statement in this very special occasion that you are presiding over the former Vice President. We hold a strong belief that the ECOSOC system must become more focused and better coordinated. We have observed that the Council's coordination mandate is still not fully understood across the system. must operate with greater discipline, constantly asking a simple but essential question: what legal obligation or concrete SDG target requires the work being undertaken by a particular subsidiary body? In our work in New York, we also maintain that the clear division of labor between the General Assembly and the ECOSOC and the avoidance of the overlap is essential. The GA's role is in providing political direction, and the ECOSOC responsibility Section 80/251 should strengthen discipline across the UN system, including within the ECOSOC subsidiary architecture, by requesting cost efficiency and value-added assessments for new mandates. This is especially important given the significant share of the UN's active mandates housed within the ECOSOC bodies. There are already encouraging examples of this UN80 cultural shift. In our region, we appreciate UNICE's ongoing audit and of its frameworks, which reflects a strong commitment to clarity and relevance, as well as plans to further enhance internal coordination, streamline internal workflows and processes, as well as plans to reinforce data-driven and cross-sectoral approaches. UNESE's unique role, with more than 30 environmental conventions, 57 transport agreements, and over 250 global technical regulations and standards, illustrates the value of grounding activities in clear legal obligations or SDG requirements. We also appreciate the efforts of the other regional commissions in implementing changes arising from the UN80 initiative and encourage continued efforts to ensure its successful implementation. Finally, we encourage all ECOSOC subsidiary bodies to make full use of the guidance developed by the working group, including concept notes, templates, as well as review and retirement clauses in support of the effective implementation of the Resolution 80/251. These tools are among the most significant UN80 deliverables, and their consistent application by the UN system, including ECOSOC subsidiary bodies, will be essential to achieving the coherence and focus we collectively seek. And I thank you.
I thank the distinguished ambassador, permanent representative of Poland, and now give the floor to the representative of Indonesia, to be followed by Canada and Algeria.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Indonesia welcomes this timely roundtable and thanks the presenters for their insightful briefings and for helping frame this time. Indonesia, 3 points are essential. First, greater coherence across ECOSOC subsidiary bodies is important. Functional commissions, expert bodies, and regional commissions should be encouraged to work in a including through stronger use of regional platforms, South-South and triangular cooperation, and national and local expertise. Reform of ECOSOC's working methods should also strengthen inclusivity and trust. Smaller delegations and developing countries must be able to engage meaningfully in the work of subsidiary bodies. Second, ECOSOC strengthening should not unfold in isolation. It takes place alongside the broader UN80 process, and both tracks can be mutually reinforcing. For many developing countries, the final mile to 2030 depends on financing, technology transfer, capacity building, data systems, and resilient institutions. ECOSOC subsidiary bodies should therefore help identify gaps, mobilize partnerships,
representative of Indonesia, and now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Canada, to be followed by Algeria, Vice Presidency of ECOSOC.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Good morning, and I thank the panelists for their participation today. It's nice to see you, and in particular would like to thank the chair of the CND for his travel from Vienna to New York. Sometimes the subsidiary bodies that are outside of headquarters, we don't get the chance to hear from them as much, so we deeply appreciate your participation. In listening to the conversation, we took note of many of the suggestions and also comments on what has been done to implement some of the resolutions on revitalization to improve working methods and ensure that the work of the subsidiary bodies are very effective and efficient. We invite the panelists to answer any or all of them, including in their personal capacity, as I know that in the capacity as chair, you also represent the members of your committee, so any reflections would be helpful. One question is, do your respective committees and commissions have a standing agenda item on revitalization? Another question would be, some of you spoke about the cooperation between ECOSOC's subsidiary bodies. Could you elaborate a little bit more about what that looks like in practice? We heard of your participation on roundtables, which include the chairs of the different committees, but in terms of the substantive work of your bodies, is there cooperation, joint meetings? Do you receive reports from other subsidiary bodies? Do you follow up on recommendations from those subsidiary bodies? Any information you could provide would be helpful. Third question, do you find that the recommendations and policy documents which emanate from your discussions are adequately being implemented? And the final question would be, as member states consider the review of ECOSOC subsidiary machinery in 2027, if you had one recommendation to make as it pertains to your committee, what would that be? Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Canada, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Algeria, VP of the Council.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We thank you for selecting this timely and relevant theme for the roundtable at the management segment, especially during the ongoing GA process on ECOSOC HLPF review and ahead of the ECOSOC 2027 review of its subsidiary body. We also appreciate and thank the Deputy Secretary General for her presence and for her insightful remark, as well as the very insightful remarks of the speakers and panelists, especially those coming from outside of New York. We also believe that ECOSOC has a very important role in coordinating and integrating the outcome of its subsidiary body on its own work, and also to give to make better use of their contribution into the HLPF. I have two questions for the distinguished panelists. Taking into consideration the diversity of the ECOSOC subsidiary bodies, how do you see we can further promote cooperation among them, and how to ensure that they work closely together when they address similar issues, each within own mandates? The second question would be also how to ensure that the relevant input, including from functional commissions, are taken into consideration in the HLPF ministerial declaration. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Algeria. We have heard from the last speaker in the interactive discussion. I now invite each of the panelists to share in around 3-4 minutes a key insight or takeaway message based on the discussion. I'll give the floor to Ambassador Ben Cosme. Dear Wellington, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and thank you for your comments to the delegates of the different delegates. Something that came up is on the issue of how to, and this is on the personal note, how do we think there's an interaction between the different subsidiary bodies? I mean, I think this is a key. I took note of definitely from my own experience, that has been extremely helpful is the creating the spaces for the different stakeholders to receive input from the different stakeholders. And we have made efforts in that sense, and I think that the more interactions we have from the different stakeholders and definitely among ourselves within the different subsidiary bodies is definitely critical. So most definitely an effort should be made, a greater effort towards that. With respect to how about making sure that recommendations are trickle down on to HLPF, and I think it's also it's all about communication. I think it's critical to also maintain strong channels of communication within our regional groups. I think we have a responsibility also that are serving in different bodies recommendations trickle down to the different spaces. I think it's critical, that level of communication. Regarding no, I think I will stop it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Hovhannisyan, if you would like to add, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President, and it's a pleasure to take the floor under your chairmanship. And thank you to all delegates for your valuable comments and inputs. I thank the representative of I think this is also partially an answer to one of your questions about the cooperation between the subsidiary bodies of ECOSOC, more interactions. In case of a CND, the CCPCJ is also situated in Vienna and it has a shared secretariat. So in that case, the cooperation between these two functional commissions are importance, and I can testify it also personally, being here and sharing our experience from Vienna here with different stakeholders. So we would very much encourage these interactions. I also put that in my statement with regard to this horizontal cooperation, which is of utmost importance, but also the reporting back and forth, which is also the case, I think, with the HLPF ministerial declaration. As for the CND, we are regularly contributing, and this year we have already made our submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Antranik. Ms. Collin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Vice President, and thank you to all of the delegations who've been participating this morning. I would like to acknowledge the concerns that were expressed in relation to interaction, cooperation, coordination, collaboration. All of this indicates a need for there to be collective work, collective purpose that can really that emerge from the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. In this regard, I think there are some worthwhile things we can do. Firstly, implement what we have learned along the way. So what I'm saying is that we are not starting from scratch. We are starting from a position of experience, a path that has led us to some very significant achievements. And I think these lessons really show us the successful ways forward that we can use in the future. And for statistics, this means robust measurements, clear, solid data and statistics. Cooperation and coordination, but also about in terms of communicating where we are and what is missing ahead of this final mile to get us through the final mile. There are spaces for cooperation. There are fora where we beyond that into new initiatives that are going to place sustainable development not as the final post, but as a starting point for the following 15 years. Thank you. I thank Ms. Colleen.
I'd like to point back to one of the panelists' remarks, specifically Mr. Alter, who mentioned that countries benefit from the use of common strategic frameworks and principles. I'd like to share that since 2021, the United Nations Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management, or UNGGIM, has witnessed over 100 countries using our framework, the United Nations Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, to implement or to advance geospatial infrastructures within their respective countries. This is a significant achievement related to the adoption of a UN framework. This framework is focused on revitalization. To the delegate from Mozambique who suggested that perhaps mapping of recommendations be considered. The high-level group of the Integrated Geospatial Information Framework is very active, and we have mapped our recommendations against our progress over the past several years, and we'd be happy to share that as an example of how we're making that work. Information like statistical and Earth observations is very important, and these policy briefs may be used to encourage ministries of finance, ministries of development, specifically related to collaboration between ECOSOC subsidiary bodies. I'd like to point to our working group focused on integrating geospatial and statistical information. This group statistical frameworks for success, and we can share more information about that with you. And then finally, our recommendations adequately being tracked. I would say yes. Our working groups, whether those focused on land administration, geodesy, integrating geospatial and statistical data, marine geospatial data, the working groups are very active. And every year the expectation is such that when you come to the annual meeting, I will say this can be further demonstrated that we've recently opened 2 centers of excellence, one focused on global geospatial knowledge, another focused on geodesy, and a third soon to open focused on the future, geospatial ecosystems. And so I think that's a great example of how recommendations have been put into action. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, the floor goes to Mr. Alter.
Chairman, and thank you very much for those comments that were made. I'd like to perhaps refer first to the fact that governments all over the world are struggling really with making sure that that type of coherence, collaboration, and cooperation becomes a reality and not just an institutional setup. And I think that's not to be surprised that that happens, because in fact, wherever you go, this is something that means a mindset that is organized around collaboration and cooperation and looking for trade-offs. It's a mindset that I think the UN has already a few years ago very well pursued as an important feature of this transformation of public administration to be better placed for implementation. My second point is, I think we, as a SEPA member and the chair, I can say that we are very closely, of course, looking towards the themes that ECOSOC develops every year. And of course, the selection of SDGs under review. And I perceive this as being very close to the concerns and the decisions that are taken by ECOSOC. In that sense, in a vertical sense, SEPA is close to the thoughts, the ideas, the decisions, and the expectations of ECOSOC. But of course, there's always space for improvement. So I'm not saying it's all perfect, but I know that when we start our work program for the sessions to come, the theme is an extremely important guidance. And maybe that also helps to at least perceive it as being in the mainstream of what ECOSOC considers critical at a given point in time. And my third point is about strengthening horizontal cooperation. I can say that SEPA has been always very welcoming to observers outside the system, but also, of course, inside the system. And some of our colleagues have been with us regularly and extremely appreciated by the SEPA members themselves in enlarging insights that can only come from places and from people who are in places where challenges exist. Therefore, I think that we should promote the mindset for collaboration, not just in governments that the UN serves, but of course also inside the UN system. And let me just say, the speaker before me you were very clear about what it is that needs and is important to know. Has the work been adopted? Has it been used? Is it of practical and pragmatic relevance? Maybe there I would recommend that this dashboard that was mentioned this morning, a very up-to-date dashboard. I think it would be a good thing to know whether, and if so, to what extent recommendations that were made have actually found its way into this practical approach that governments everywhere are pursuing. Thank you very much.
I thank you, and I thank all panelists for their valuable insight. I now will proceed to the closing remarks on behalf of Ambassador Benjama, Vice President in charge for the management segment. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, my appreciation again to all for the commitment and expertise you have brought to our discussion. Your insights come at a pivotal moment. Today's global challenges demand greater responsiveness, which requires stronger coherence and coordination. We have heard about the value of bringing together data, knowledge, and policy approaches to address the complex and interrelated challenges of sustainable development. We have also heard about the importance of effective monitoring, follow-up, and accountability mechanisms in helping intergovernmental commitments into tangible actions towards achieving the SDGs. A recurring theme throughout our exchanges has been the importance of fostering stronger connections between the ECOSOC subsidiary bodies and to build on their mandates, institutions, and areas of expertise to ensure better support to member states in advancing integrated solutions that can yield more effective and lasting results. Dear colleagues, the challenge before us is to ensure that this ecosystem operates not as a collection of individual bodies, but as a mutually reinforcing system that harnesses its collective expertise to generate greater impact in support of the Sustainable Development Goals. Today's discussion will help inform ongoing review process and future efforts to strengthen the effectiveness of the Council and its subsidiary machinery, in particular ECOSOC's upcoming review of its subsidiary bodies. I look forward to working with you all to ensure a meaningful and impactful review. I thank you. I briefly pause the meeting to arrange the podium. Please remain seated. I invite the Council to begin its consideration of Agenda Item 12A, Coordination Program and Other Questions, reports of coordination bodies to hold a dialogue with the Secretariat of the United Nations System Chief Executives Board for Coordination. I invite the Secretary of the Chief Executive Board, Ms. Mike Janssen, to introduce the annual overview report of the United Nations System Chief Executives Board for Coordination for 2025 as contained in document E/2026/50. Ms. Janssen, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, distinguished delegates. The Council has before it the annual overview report of the United Nations System Chief Executives Board for Coordination, CEB, for 2025, describing major activities carried out under the board's auspices. Over the course of 2025, the board continued to advance coherence across the United Nations system in support of member states and implementation of intergovernmental mandates. Against a backdrop of complex and interconnected global challenges, board members emphasized the importance of multilateral cooperation and collective action in delivering coordinated and effective responses. As you will see in the report, through the High-Level Committee on Programs, HLCP, organizations advance work on key policy issues requiring system-wide engagement, including demographic change, transnational organized crime, artificial intelligence, measures of progress beyond GDP, and climate action. These efforts generated practical outcomes, including common messages, policy dialogues, and coordinated approaches, thereby strengthening policy coherence and support to member states. The committee also continued to support implementation of the Doha Program of Action for the least developed countries and preparations towards its midterm review. Through CEB's High-Level Committee on Management, HLCM, organizations prioritize efforts to strengthen resilience and the impact of United Nations operations. In the context of sustained financial constraints, coordinated action was undertaken to safeguard mandate delivery and operational integrity. Work focused on advancing a portfolio of far-reaching efficiency initiatives to simplify, integrate, and modernize core business operations, as well as on strengthening risk management, enhancing digital solutions, expanding system-wide statistics, and promoting data-driven decision-making to support transparency and accountability. The board also continued to advance priorities including disability inclusion, multilingualism, and efforts to prevent and address sexual harassment. These initiatives contribute to a more inclusive, effective, and accountable organization. The experiences reflected in the annual overview reports are relevant in the context of reform efforts in the UN, including the Secretary General's UN 80 initiative. They demonstrate how CEB and its mechanisms are supporting efforts to enhance effectiveness and efficiency by fostering coherence and leveraging the comparative advantages of organizations across the system while remaining firmly grounded in the mandates that have been established by member states. System-wide coordination is ever more essential in delivering intergovernmental mandates. In today's demanding environment, the logic is simple. When the system aligns, it delivers more, and when it delivers together, it delivers better. Because coordination is not an added layer, it is a force multiplier and an enabler. So I trust this report demonstrates how CEB continues to serve as a platform for coherence, coordination, and collective problem solving across the UN system in support of member states and the people it serves. I welcome the Council's view on the work of the board, and I thank you very much.
I thank the Secretary of the Chief Executive's Board. I now invite the Council to dialogue with the Secretariat of the CEB. The floor is now open for comments and questions. Does any delegation wish to take the floor? I see no request for the floor at the moment. I thank the Secretary of the Chief Executive's Board for joining us this morning. And that concludes this stage of the Council's consideration of Agenda Item 12A. We will pause for 1 minute to rearrange the podium. I now invite the Council to resume its consideration of Agenda Item 4, elections, nominations, confirmations, and appointments. In accordance with Council Decision 1995/223, I now invite the Council to consider an outstanding vacancy on the Program Coordinating Board of the Joint United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS. As circulated on the e-delegate platform on 10 June, Nigeria has submitted its candidature for a term of office beginning on the date of election and expiring on 31st December 2028. Before proceeding to the election, does any delegation wish to make a statement? Russian Federation.
Distinguished Chair, I'd like to simply clarify if this question was already on the agenda before, because we were not aware of the upcoming elections. The candidacy of Nigeria was presented yesterday, just before the elections. We don't have any objections to that candidacy. The question of the rules of procedure. Thank you. This question was added at the last minute, but I'll allow the Secretary to answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The item on elections was added, I think delegations were informed through ECOSOC Place yesterday. It's an outstanding vacancy for a term that has already begun, and that was the reason the Vice President wished to have action taken at the management segment today. It's an uncontested seat for an outstanding vacancy on the board. But there was a message highlighting the addition to the program circulated through ECOSOC Place yesterday. Thank you.
I see no further requests for the floor. May I take it that the Council wishes to elect Nigeria by acclamation to the Program Coordinating Board of the Joint UN Program on HIV/AIDS for a term beginning on 11 June 2026 and expiring on 31st December 2028. I hear no objection. It is decided. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the election? I see no request for the floor. The Council has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 4. Distinguished delegates, we have thus completed our program of work for this morning, as well as the program of work of the June management segment of the Council. The meeting is adjourned. Et voilà.
you.